Hey everyone, how's it going? Are you thinking about moving to Illinois? Or maybe you already live in the state, but you're thinking about moving to another town. If so, stick around and I'll show you which are the 10 safest cities and towns in Illinois. As a disclaimer, I only counted towns that have a population of at least 1,500. I also excluded the Chicago suburbs because those will be reviewed in a future video. If you want to learn more about living or visiting Illinois, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on videos from Stuck in the Kernfield, where we explore Illinois. Starting with number 10, Sherman. Not to be confused with Shermer, Illinois, which was the fictional location from the John Hughes movies. They have a population of 4,700 people. The livability score is 75 due to the cost of living being 5% higher than the Illinois average and schools getting graded at a D. There were 24 crimes in the previous year reported, only 3 of which were violent. You have a 1 in 1,594 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, or a 1 in 200 chance of being the victim of any crime. Sherman is safer than 88% of U.S. cities, and the crime rate is 81% lower than the national average. Number 9. Aviston. Aviston has a population of about 2,100 people. Only 3 crimes were reported the previous year, but sadly those were 2 rapes and 1 burglary. The crime rate is 95% below the national average. You have a 1 in 1,059 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, but a 1 in 706 chance of being the victim of any crime. Aviston is safer than 88% of American cities. The livability score is 80, with the only real problem being the lack of entertainment in the town. Number 8. Breeze. With a population of 4,500, Breeze has a livability score of 86. They had 30 crimes reported, consisting of 2 assaults and 28 property crimes. Breeze is safer than 88% of U.S. cities. You have a 1 in 2,246 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, and a 1 in 150 chance of being the victim of any crime. They get a C+ in cost of living and employment, and an A or B in all other categories. The cost of living, despite being a C+, is still 7% below the national average and 5% below the Illinois average. And in the employment category, the median household income is $67,000, which is $8,000 more than the Illinois average, and the poverty level is only 4.4%, so it's a nice little town to live in. Number 7. Rochester. With a population of 3,700, Rochester gets graded down for not having any amenities in town, so their livability score is 79, but that's still a really good score. There were only 20 crimes reported, 2 of which were assaults, the rest were property crimes. The chance of being the victim of a violent crime is 1 in 1,867. The chance of being the victim of any crime is only 1 in 187. Crime rates are 79% lower than the national average, and Rochester is safer than 89% of U.S. cities. Number 6. Athens. Athens has a population of about 1,900 people. For the previous year, there were 16 property crimes, and that was it. That was the entire crime spree. You have a 1 in 119 chance of being the victim of a crime in Athens. Their crime rate is 64% lower than the Illinois average, and it's safer than 89% of U.S. cities. The livability score is only 64 though, due to scoring a D in employment and an F in amenities in schools. However, the real estate prices are 40% lower than the Illinois average, so if you're looking for a quiet, safe, cheap place to live and you don't need to find a job in the area, Athens might be a good place for you. Number 5. New Berlin. The population of New Berlin is only around 1,500 people. There were 8 crimes reported in the previous year, all of which were property crimes. The crime rates are 77% lower than the national average and 74% lower than the Illinois average. You have a 1 in 167 chance of being the victim of any crime in New Berlin. The town is 92% safer than other U.S. cities. The livability score is only 65, which isn't great, but that is mostly due to the lack of amenities. However, it is only a 20-minute drive to Springfield, so if you're looking for entertainment, you can always go there. Number 4. Auburn. Auburn has a population of 4,600 residents. There were 9 crimes reported in the previous year, which consisted of 2 assaults and 7 property crimes. You have a 1 in 2,348 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, or a 1 in 522 chance of being the victim of any crime. The crime rate is 93% lower than the national average, and Auburn is safer than 93% of U.S. cities. The livability score, though, is only 65 due to getting an F grade in housing and schools. So if you have kids, it might not be a good fit, but for someone who isn't concerned with the education stats, this is a safe little community. Number 3. Smithton. Smithton has a population of 3,900 residents. They had a total of 9 crimes reported, with that being 1 assault and 8 property crimes. You have a 1 in 3,823 chance of being the victim of a violent crime, or a 1 in 425 chance of being the victim of any crime. They have a 93% lower crime rate than the national average, and Smithton is safer than 94% of U.S. cities. Their livability score is 78, which is a really good score because the town has a lot going for it. The median household income is $73,250, which is significantly higher than both the national and Illinois average, and before the pandemic, the unemployment rate was only 3%. 90% of the Smithton residents are homeowners, and the high school graduation rate is 12% higher than the national average. The only drawback I could find on Smithton is that the residents have to drive to the next town over to get their groceries and medical care. Number 2. Pawnee. Pawnee has a population of around 2,700 residents. They only had 1 crime reported, which is excellent, but unfortunately that 1 crime was a rape. Their crime rates are 99% below the national average, and Pawnee is safer than 95% of cities in the U.S. You have a 1 in 2,668 chance of being the victim of any crime within the Pawnee city limits. Their livability score is 77. They were, however, given an F in schools because the school test scores are 30% lower than the national average, but their high school graduation rate is 6% higher than the national average, so make of that what you will. And number 1, Leland Grove. This is a town in Sangamon County near Springfield with a population of approximately 1,600 residents. They only had 1 crime reported, which was a vehicle theft. Your chance of being the victim of any crime is only 1 in 1,486. The crime rates are 97% lower than the national average, and Leland Grove is in the top 3% of safest cities in the U.S. They have a livability score of 98, which is just outstanding. They actually have the best score out of the entire state of Illinois. Along with almost non-existent crime, they also have an extremely low poverty rate of only 3.3%. The median household income in Leland Grove is $95,417, which is 72% higher than the national average. So those were our 10 safest cities in Illinois. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell icon to learn more about the state of Illinois. If you think there was a town that should have made the list, leave a comment below and maybe I'll add it to a future video. And until next time, I remain stuck in the Kernfield.